You know, if there's a downside to Impact improving so much lately, it's that I have to work a lot harder to find stuff to bitch about now. But I'm sure I'll think of something. I'll be damned if this wasn't the fifth good Impact in a row. Maybe not quite as good as the last batch of shows, but there wasn't anything that was really offensive, unlike, say, Chavo Guerrero in a bull costume getting hogtied by Hornswoggle in a cowboy costume. Not a perfect show, but we're still going in the right direction. Anyway, most of Impact this week focused on this tournament to fill the last two spots in the Fatal 4-Way and No Surrender. I would have preferred that they stretched this out over 2 or 3 weeks so they could have given the matches more hype, but devoting an entire show to this wasn't a terrible way to go either. I liked the tournament for the most part. There were a couple of problems though. What the hell were Sting and Rhino doing in this thing? Rhino already has a match at No Surrender. He's facing Bobby Lashley. And Sting, just a few weeks ago, Sting competed and lost in a match at Hard Justice that was billed as his last shot at the World Heavyweight title. And now, what all of a sudden, he just gets entered in a tournament for a spot in a World Heavyweight title match? How does that work? I can sort of understand Rhino being in there. I mean, they had to find some way to get this guy some momentum as a heel before they jobbed him out to Lashley. But with Sting, the only thing that makes sense to me is that maybe they had to change their plans at the last minute because of the Kurt Angle situation. Anyway, Sting gets into the title match, but none of the young guys got squashed in the process like Miz and MVP did on Raw a few weeks ago. I appreciate that. I thought Hernandez looked like a big star, beating on Sting the way he did. Another thing I liked about this tournament were the participants. AJ, Sabin, Suicide, Hernandez, Doug Williams, all hot up-and-comers. Now, if Jeff Jarrett still had creative control, he probably would have taken Sabin, Suicide, and Hernandez out of there and replaced them with Nash, Steiner, and Booker T, which would have been horrible. So I'll just go through the matches real fast. Sting and Rhino, this was what it was. It wasn't really a bad match, but I don't think any of us expected it to be that great. The one thing that bugged me about this was that this was a rematch from the World Heavyweight title match at Genesis, and they just threw it out there as the curtain jerker match with no hype at all. And yeah, I guess this had to come first because they were setting up the injury angle with Sting, but one of the reasons why this should have played out over several weeks was so they could have made each of these qualifying matches mean something, even if the winners were kind of predictable. Hernandez and Homicide was okay, probably not as good as it should have been, I'm not really sure why. Suicide and Doug Williams was solid. AJ and Doug Williams was really good, and AJ and Sabin was fantastic. If they had given that match like 15 or 20 minutes, that could have been a match of the year candidate. That head scissors through the ropes that Sabin did, man, my jaw was on the floor. You know, Taz said afterwards that this was one of the best matches he'd had the opportunity to call in a long time, and he wasn't kidding. Go out of your way to find that match if you missed it. Sting and Hernandez was really just an angle to set up the brawl at the end of the show. I'm really not a fan of that type of stuff, and I know TNA has an annoying habit of doing this from time to time. I would like to see longer main event matches. I mean, Impact has improved a lot lately, but that's an area where they're still really struggling with, setting aside enough time for their TV main events. Hopefully that will happen in the future. Now, the best part of the show for me, aside from AJ and Sabin, was the segment with Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe. Basically, it was Daniels confronting Joe, talking about their whole history, that classic feud with AJ, how a few years ago the three of them were the X Division, and the X Division was the center of the universe in TNA, even bringing up the Unbreakable 05 match. Man, I was marking out huge for this whole thing. This was exactly what needed to be said, and exactly what needed to happen for the X Division to just get back some of that importance it used to have. And yeah, I mean, they're probably only doing this because it's Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe. But because it is Daniels and Joe, it feels like a big deal. And the X Division title finally looks like it means something again. You know, I'm still not sure if I'm going to order No Surrender, but I can't wait to see this match. Now, pretty much the only other thing on the show this week that didn't involve the No Surrender main event in some way was the knockout stuff. They had another qualifier in this tag title tournament thing. Tara and Christy Hemme versus Hamada and some jobber Bolt. You know, like I've been saying over the last couple of weeks, I've got a lot of reservations about this. I don't think TNA is going about it the right way, and this match was a perfect example. First of all, except for Hamada's moonsault, the match really wasn't that good. Second, it was two randomly paired teams that were created just for the sake of filling a spot. And surprise, surprise, there wasn't a drop of chemistry between either of them. It just felt like a bunch of singles wrestlers and not like two tag teams, and that's a big problem. They don't have enough established teams to make this work. The creation of knockout tag team titles isn't motivated by having an abundance of women tag teams with nothing to fight over. It's motivated by having too many singles wrestlers with nothing to do. Angelina just got released, so the beautiful people are kaput, at least for now. Kong and Saeed are teasing a breakup, and if that happens, then you've got the easiest new team to establish, which is Taylor and Sarita, who are awesome together. But then you've got a bunch of completely random makeshift teams, and out of that whole group, Alyssa, Flash, and Daphne is really the only one that has any chance of working out, in my opinion. But that one might not even last either, because they're probably going to have Alyssa feud with Awesome Kong if they unmask Raisha Saeed, which looks like it's going to happen before too long. It just really feels like the writers didn't put enough thought into this. If you want to make women's tag team titles, that's fine. But why are you doing this now when you're obviously not ready to do it? If you want to do this the right way, why not hold off on it for a few months? Take some time to repackage some of the women, get some real teams established, or to bring in some teams from the indies, and then when you're ready, when you got all the pieces in place, crown the first knockout tag team champions at Genesis or something like that. Taking some time to really do this properly would give the tag team division a much better chance of getting over. But you're dead set on doing this, TNA. You're going to crown your first champion soon. So be it. I have a question. Why are you doing this at No Surrender? You know that Bound for Glory is next month, right? Can't you hold off on this for 1 month and then crown your first champions on your biggest show of the year? Well, it'll mean a lot more. That's just common sense. So that'll about do it for Impact this week. But I have a little extra time here, and I've had some requests for this. So now I'm going to bring back movie reviews, and I'm going to talk about Inglorious Basterds, which I saw last weekend. Now, I am a huge Tarantino fan. I love Pulp Fiction, and Kill Bill is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I was really looking forward to this movie. To be honest, I was a little disappointed. Not that it wasn't good, I just don't think it was his best work. And all his trademark stuff is still there. You know, Tarantino can write dialogue like no one else, and that hasn't changed. But there were times when it felt like he was trying a little too hard to show that off. You know, there were a lot of scenes that felt like they were just needlessly drawn out, and they could have gotten to the point a lot sooner than they did. I mean, I think if Tarantino had cut like 10 or 15 pages out of the script, it probably would have been a lot tighter. I mean, the movie just feels like one really long conversation after another, and a lot of it is the characters just talking about stuff when them doing the stuff they were talking about would have been a lot more interesting. You know, it's just an awful lot of talking, and it gets kind of tedious. I mean, after a while, I found myself really wishing they would pick up the pace. Plus, they don't tell you this in the trailers, but a good 70% of this movie is in subtitles. And that's not bad, but I'm a little bit dyslexic, so I can't always keep up with subtitles. But this is not to say it's a bad movie. It's not. And even though I don't think it's the best thing Tarantino's ever come up with, it's still really good. I mean, the cast, the acting, the set pieces are all great. And I really think they could pick up some Oscar nominations when those come out. I mean, definitely Best Original Screenplay. I mean, like I said, the scenes are very long and drawn out, but it's still Tarantino writing them. And it is a great story, even if it feels like it's a little too long sometimes. I mean, I think it could also pick up a couple acting nominations as well. I don't know their names, but the actor who plays the main bad guy, the Nazi officer who's hunting all the Jews, he's really good. And the guy who plays Hitler is awesome. He's not in it for, you know, he's not in too much of the movie, but he really does make an impression. Check that guy out. So Inglourious Basterds, it was a little disappointing for me. Don't get me wrong, I mean, it's a good movie, and parts of it are great. I mean, overall, I liked it. I just wanted to love it, and I couldn't quite get there. Anyway, that'll be it for me. That's all I've got. I don't have enough time to talk about the Angelina thing this week. I'll get into that next week. Until then, I gotta go, so I'll talk to you guys later.